Any other questions? Yeah.
I have a related question. You mentioned a method of measuring where you set a cookie and then on the unload event, and then on the onload event you read the cookie back. You do that on the server side, and so you really have no control over the...
You actually do it on the client side.
Oh, you do it on the client side?
Yeah. So what happens on the client, the window onload event fires, and it says, okay, I know the epoch time right now when onload fired. Let me look for a cookie. Oh, there is a cookie. So let me take the delta of those two epoch times, and then I'm going to send that back to my metrics server.
Right, but the metrics server has no way really to account for the user's data connection speed or the type of device they're using or you know, or the speed of the browser or the processor in the device or things like that. And so are you getting, to use an extreme example, you know, outliers like someone using a dial-up versus someone using cable? Do you get useful metrics from that, really?
Yeah, the metrics...
Distributions and things?
Yeah, the metrics are really useful. The question is, but it's a very valid point. The point being raised is you're getting this time, 10.7 seconds, and you have no idea, like, the context that it came from. And that's not entirely true. We know the page that they looked at. We have the IP address, so we can do geographic region. We have the user agent string, so we know what browser they're in, which tells us a little bit about what device they're using. There's also ways in these tools to measure the user's connection speed. Log normal, for example, has that built in. So you could actually, and you would turn that on yourself. That's an optional module to turn on in log normal. And so you could actually know this exact user's connection speed at the time that the page was being loaded. So there's quite a bit of context that you know around that measurement. Now, one thing I'll say, you were asking, like, is it possible that it could be skewed by someone who's on a dial-up? Well, if you're gathering millions of data points a day, I mean, it depends on how many page views you do. If 500,000 of your users are on dial-up connections, then yeah, that's going to have a major impact, and it should, because a lot of your users are on really slow connections. Probably you have 50 users on dial-up connections or something like that. And so even though they're long, they're not going to have that much of an impact. And there's statistical techniques you can use, like box and whiskers plots, to try to get rid of outliers. And I really recommend that, because with techniques like this where you're gathering data, when you're gathering data in a controlled environment, you have to worry less about outliers, but here we're gathering data in an uncontrolled environment. And there's a lot of things that can happen. There's, believe it or not, it's possible for there to be bugs in the code, and I've seen that happen, where we get page load times that are in the days. And obviously that doesn't make sense. And there's also really intelligent college kids out there who just like to mess with you. And they notice this beacon that's going back, and they can figure out, some of these products will encode the data to make it hard to figure out, but they can figure out, oh, well, let me just send back 500 beacons a second that say the page took 15 hours to load. And so if you don't, on every system that I've built like this, we always go, that's not going to happen, and it happens. So you try to prevent that, but there are a lot of things that are happening that are anomalous that you aren't aware of. And so when you're gathering data from an uncontrolled environment, you want to do some sort of outlier filtering. So that would be another way to mitigate that. And then if you have all this information in your database, like Google Analytics, like all of these products do, you can break it out by geographic region, you can break it out by browser, things like that. Yes?
Yeah, so did you say that cookie tracking filter feature is built into Google Analytics and doesn't support push data?
No, it's not in Google Analytics. Google Analytics doesn't need it because Google Analytics only supports browsers that have the nav timing API. And the nav timing API, one of the biggest things it gave us was we don't need to use that cookie because in the nav timing API there's a value window.performance.timing.navigation start, which is when the user clicked the link. And that's actually better than this cookie technique because The cookie technique is going to miss the first page that the user hits on your website because they didn't come from a previous page on your website, and so the cookie's not there. And guess what? The first page load time that a user has on your website is usually the worst, because that's when nothing's in the cache, or more likely that things are not in the cache. And so it is an oversight, it's a drawback, but it's better than having nothing, I think.
What about the second question on push state?
I'm sorry, push state?
Yeah, does Google Analytics support push state? From the HTML5 push state, go to the next page without having to reload everything?
I don't know how that works. I haven't looked at that. The question was, does Google Analytics handle push state? And I don't know. I haven't tested that. Yeah?
A lot of really dynamic pages, you kind of have to be the original page.
Yeah, single page web apps. The question was about single page web apps, because all of these things, track their time at the window.onload. And if you run Gmail for 6 hours a day, there's only one window.onload. And so there's actually 3 timing APIs. The navigation timing, which is, think of it as very high level timing data for the page. Then there's a new one, resource timing, which is out in Chrome and one other browser, I forget what. And it will give you timing information for every request in the page, every image and script and style sheet. And then there's a third one, which is a little further behind, called user timing. And basically you can do user timing yourself. All the packages that were up there before supported, including Google Analytics. You basically track a time, like you have a webmail app and you want to track the time it takes to, the user clicks send to the time that you get the response back that the send completed. And so in your Ajax, in your JavaScript code, when the user clicks send, you mark a start time, and then when you get the response that it was sent back from the server, you mark the end time, and you can take the delta of those and beacon them back. So those are supported in those packages, but it requires some additional JavaScript, and the JavaScript is different depending on whether you use Google Analytics or LogNormal or Impulse. And so the point of the user timing API, user timing spec, is to build that into the browser, so you have to download less JavaScript and to make it a standard API across all browsers. But I don't think that's even out yet. Yes? For Google, so the question was, when will there be some timing information for Google Blink?
Interesting results.
Yeah, well, they probably already have those, I would guess. Blink is the new fork of WebKit that is in Chrome that Google announced about a month ago. They probably already have those. I haven't seen any blog posts. Those Chrome guys are very forthcoming with data, even embarrassing data. So I would expect it would be soon, and I would expect it's not embarrassing. Anything else? We should probably get going. Okay, so this is web page test. We looked at a film strip view, and a picture is worth 1,000 words, but a video is worth 1,000,000 words. And so you can also take up to 9 results, or 6 or 8 or something like that, and create a video. And this, I think, is even more impactful. So we can see we've got Box, Google Drive, which we know is fast. So that finished at 4. So you can see how some of them render progressively. And this is on the phone, which is bottlenecked much more than desktop. On a desktop, it's actually much more fun to watch because the rendering will happen much more with much more granularity. Here, what we saw were big bursts of the page jumping in. And we can kind of get we're talking here about metrics. And the thing I want to mention about these is all of these kind of bite. They're measuring window onload time, which doesn't necessarily, what we really want to measure is the user's perception of speed on the web page. And once we outfit every internet user with Google Glass will be able to track that because it has this sensor. But until then, we don't have a good proxy for the user's perception. So, back in the Web 1.0 world, we used window.onload, which was very accurate. And now in the Web 2.0 world, it's not very accurate. What we really see are pages, especially these single-page web apps, where they're doing a lot of JavaScript, Ajax JavaScript stuff, rendering things in JavaScript, creating DOM in JavaScript before anything is rendered on the page, where the window onload can be 5 times faster or 5 times slower than the time it actually takes for content to get rendered on the screen. And that's what the user perception is based on, is the feedback in pixels on the screen, right? And so Pat, the creator of Web Page Test, has done some really awesome work on this. There have been other PhD dissertations on this topic and really advanced work. And he came up with something that is better than all of those, and he calls it Speed Index, which I think is a terrible name. But here's a plot of it. And again, this is you wouldn't see something like this so extreme on desktop, but it's happening on mobile. And what it is it's showing you the, over here, this is percentage of pixels above the fold. It's showing you at what point you hit that percentage of pixels rendered on the screen. So for Google Drive, we went from 0 to 100% at like 4 seconds. Right? Whereas, what's this one? Sugar Sync had about a quarter of the pixels rendered at 9.9, and so on. You can see how it goes. And the speed index is basically the median time, the time at which the 50th percentile pixel was drawn to the page, right? So this is kind of interesting. We see that Dropbox is, again, one of those 0 to 100 leaps right away. So, why did that happen? Web Page Test is an awesome tool. I can just go up here and click on the box results, and we'll go to box, and I'll click on summary. And I think for these, I did 3 tests, and Web Page Test by default takes the median based on page load time, and so the median is run number 2. And I can look at kind of the old school waterfall chart. This one, the color coding, but it's iPhone, so everything's blue. The color coding is more based on network activity, but we don't have a lot of visibility into that for iPhone. But the one that I love is the film strip view. And this is showing me, at whatever granularity I choose, 0.1 seconds, right now it's at a half a second, how the page rendered over time, right? And, so what we see is that it doesn't render at all until the 12-second mark. And what you can do you see this red line? Right there? That red line moves, and it's always aligned with the leftmost screenshot up above. So right now I'm at like screenshot 11 seconds, and the line's at about 11 seconds. So what I can do is I can slide over to the point, I can't here, I have to go to point 1. I can slide over to the point where rendering started, and that will get the red line down in the waterfall chart right where I want it. Hello, rendering, there you go, okay. And so now I can go down here and I can see what was it that blocked rendering until that point. And what we see is we know that scripts block rendering, right? And so we have a script right here that's blocking rendering, and we have one right here that probably this one wasn't able to download until this one downloaded. This one is Google Analytics. And so whenever I see Google Analytics in a blocking mode like this, I always think, well, they're probably not using the new, 2 years old, asynchronous snippet pattern for Google Analytics. So how could we test that? What I want to do is I want to look at the source code for this mobile experience. But I could, one thing I could do is I could use Chrome DevTools, and I could mask my, I could override my user agent to be iPhone, and I could see what the document source looked like. But that wouldn't be as exciting a demo as what I'm going to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show off this thing called the mobile perf bookmarklet. And so I'm going to do it up here. I tried getting a split screen thing so I could display my iPhone up here. I tried getting that working earlier today, but it didn't work. So I'll just kind of do this. And let's see, the mobile, this is something I wrote, and it's a bookmarklet. Hopefully people have used those before. I click on it. Oh, it won't work here. Chrome now won't let you load if the page is HTTPS, and my script is not, so it won't let me load it, but Firefox will. So we'll go over here. And let's see, I think it's in here. Yeah, mobile perf. We'll load it over here. And it basically is a Uber bookmarklet. Inside it, it has links to a bunch of other bookmarklets, including Firebug Lite. Like I can click on this and get like a little mini version of Firebug inside. And you can imagine, like, I can actually do this, and in a minute I will do this on my mobile device. So another one I can load. How do I close this now? I don't know how. It must be one of these. What's this? What? Oh, okay, it went away. So what I want to do is I want to look at the document source. How do you do that on your phone, right? If I load this on my phone, how do you look at document source on your phone? You can't. There's really no way to do it. Except I built this bookmarklet called DocSource, and it's not exactly the document source that was transferred down. It's the current inner HTML. And so we can look at that, and we can see what the inner HTML of the page is. Now, you can imagine if I tried to do this on this tiny 320 by 480 display, it'd be pretty hard to figure out what's going on. So what I can do is I can save it to JDrop. What's JDrop? Okay, so JDrop is another thing I built. And I can OAuth in using my Twitter ID. I should probably already be logged in. Yeah, so I can authorize it. So now I'm logged in, and basically the tagline is JSON in the cloud. It's integrated into a bunch of these tools, some of which I built, some of which other people built. And it lets you, the main intention is from a device that has a very small screen where you're gathering a lot of data, put it in JSON, package it up, and then send it up to JDrop. And there's an API up here, so any tool can integrate it without having to work with me. And so what I can do is I can say over here, save to JDrop, security warning, encrypted or sure, yeah, okay. Not currently logged into JDrop. Really? I thought I was. Oh, what's happening over here now? Okay. I'm logged into JDrop. Yeah. Let's try it again. I think there's some, I don't know why it's opening it up in a new window. I think there's some kind of security thing in there. So, but that's really not as compelling because on here, I can look at this code on this large laptop. Yeah.
So what do you think about using Safari developer tools for that? You can like hook up your I don't know how it works in Android, but why don't you use the Safari developer tools? And I guess you have like a full-fledged console, whatever, to debug your iPhone.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's good. Let me come back to that in a minute because you're making my demo less awesome than that it already is with the code not working. So what I'm going to do on my phone, can everyone see that? What I'm doing on my phone is I'm going to Box. So let's go back over here. I did this earlier today, so I know it works. You can see I have results from Box as of 12:56 today. So I'm in Box. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to launch the mobile perf bookmarklet. See, that's it. And I'm going to click DocSource. And I'm going to say save to JDrop. And unlike on here, it's going to say success. And now if I reload this page, there's two results, and this one just came at 1909. So now I can view the results, and I can look for ga.js, and Sure enough, it's using the document.write old pattern, which will cause blocking in the page. So there's other things that you can do in this bookmarklet. Firebug, you can get a list of the resources in the page. You can just get timing information about the page if the browser supports the web timing API. DOM monster is nice. You can look in local storage. You can run YSlow. And all of these bookmarklets work on every mobile device that supports JavaScript. So it's very cool. Okay, so the first question is, what about using these remote debuggers? I think those, you can get a lot better information by using the remote debuggers. I sometimes do that, but the thing I like, the problem with that is they're all different, and I have to install each one of them. I have to keep them up to date. I have to remember how to use them because the things that you do are different depending on which one you're using. And there are some devices and browsers that don't have remote debuggers. And so if that works for you, and sometimes I'm at places where I can't do remote debugging. Like I'm driving down the freeway and I wonder why Google Analytics is blocking box.com. And I do this all the time, so I'm not worried. I can drive and I can log into JDrop and save the results, save the document source. So there are times for both. One thing I keep telling people is there's never a single tool that's going to satisfy everyone's needs, and so you pick and choose. So I think that's what I wanted. I think that's what I wanted to show there. Any questions about JDrop or the mobile perf bookmarklet? Yeah. The question was, do we have metrics for sites that use Speedy versus sites that don't? Well, like Contendo, and I think Akamai, and certainly Google have done comparisons. Yeah, and so I think most of those show that Speedy give you like a 10 to 25% speed up. I don't know anyone like WholeFoods.com that has deployed Speedy and done A/B testing. It's usually bigger companies like that. Facebook just, I guess, went with Speedy a month or so ago, and I haven't seen any data from them, but I haven't looked really hard. I think that would be interesting to see what they say.
There was a white paper from Google saying that they found a 60% improvement. It didn't seem like anybody else had sort of independently corroborated that.
Yeah, I think that was a typo. I think he dictated that paper to Siri and he said 16, 1.6, and they just got it wrong. 1.6 is probably closer than 6.0. Okay, so metrics. So I said I started off with this and I said it's more confusing than it sounds. Like window.onload, really? Does that capture the user's perception of how fast the website is? Not very much these days. What about single-page web apps? And then we actually need a metric that has more to do with rendering than with timing of network requests. It's really when the user sees content on the page that's the most important. So actually measuring performance is a pretty challenging task. And we're working on trying to get a rendering-based metric available via JavaScript in every browser. It's going to be a year or two before we have that, but that's the direction things are moving. I'm going to go way over. Oh, okay, we already did those two. Okay, so I might not be too bad. I'm not even going to show load timer. It's another thing I built. Sure, I'll show it. Okay. All right, I'll show it. Yeah. So, again, I'm driving down in Fandango, the highway, and Fandango is just taking a really long time to load, but I don't know how long. And I can open on the desktop. I can open Chrome DevTools or Firebug or whatever. It's really easy to see the time. How do I do that in a browser that's not connected to some remote debugger? And so I just built this really simple thing. You can go in here and type, any URL you want. And and it just loads it in this. It just loads it in this iframe down here, and it shows you the load time. So if the page has frame busting code, then you won't see it. I think there's somewhere, I thought there was somewhere to tell it to load it multiple times. So it's just an easy way on a mobile device, very lightweight way to get a high level page load time. It's kind of easy, simple thing to remember.